Dog Soldiers, directed by Neil Marshall, was released in 2002. If you've ever watched any YouTube video about underrated or unknown horror movies, this film tends to crop up quite a lot. And if you haven't already heard of it or seen it, then I recommend that you go and watch this film because I'm going to be spoiling it. So yeah, you have been warned. Go watch the movie. Director Neil Marshall also directed The Descent and the 2019 Hellboy movie, which was bad. But I kind of want to talk about it at some stage because I just have thoughts on the movie. The movie also stars some great British actors such as Sean Pertwee, probably best known for playing Alfred Pennyworth in the Gotham series, who he might also be my favourite Alfred. Yeah, I think he's my favourite Alfred. The actor Liam Cunningham is also in it. What was he in? Well, he was Mad Dog Maguire in The Mummy, the bad one. He was Solon, that in Clash of the Titans, and he was Davos Seaworth in Game of Thrones. I hope that's how you pronounce that, because I didn't watch Game of Thrones. And of course, we can't go through this whole video without talking about our protagonist, who is of course played by Kevin McKidd.
Drop it!
Soap?
Place? This belongs to you, sir.
That's right, Captain Soap McTavish is the protagonist for this movie. If that's not enough of a reason for you to go and watch this movie right now, then I can't help you. You should probably go see a doctor about that. Most people will say that this movie is like Predator, but with werewolves. And I do agree with that statement. However, the story itself is nearly more like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but with submachine guns. It's also referenced in the film, the story of the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, of course. And honestly, I don't think I would have noticed it if it wasn't for the fact that it was mentioned in the film. But how is it like the tale of Goldilocks? Well, let's take a look at the movie. The tale of Goldilocks opens with her wandering through the woods and stumbling across the Three Bears' house. I'm going to skip the actual opening just for now, as it's honestly not that important. Kind of. There's a prop in the scene that's important, but like the characters and everything that happens to them isn't particularly important. So, the movie actually opens with a band of British soldiers exiting a helicopter and heading into the woods in the Scottish Highlands to carry out special manoeuvres training. After a cow gets yeeted at their camp, they decide to move on, where they eventually come across Captain Ryan's camp, which has been ransacked, with Ryan himself being injured badly and left for dead. The werewolves return to the camp, causing the soldiers to flee, and stumble across a woman driving a Land Rover known as Megan, who takes them to a farmhouse. Now this is the part where Goldilocks then enters the empty house, eating the porridge and sleeping in the bears' beds. The soldiers enter the house, setting an injured Sergeant Wells in one of the bedrooms and then eating their stew. I think it's stew. It looked like stew. Also, the stew is freshly made, and just nobody questions why there's freshly made stew in an empty house. This leads us to the end of the Goldilocks story. The bears return to find that someone has eaten their porridge and is sleeping in one of their beds. When the bears find her, Goldilocks wakes up and runs all the way back home. Surprise, surprise, it turns out that the family that lives in the house are the werewolves that are hunting the soldiers. And instead of the movie ending with all the soldiers running away, it ends with Cooper walking away with a sword after Sergeant Wells blows himself up with the werewolves and the house itself. I didn't tell you all of this to start a huge analysis of this movie and break down every character, or just break down how everything works and why it's so symbolic of the Goldilocks story or anything. I told you all of this to show you that you don't need a ridiculously overly complicated plot to make a good movie and to tell a great story. Without a doubt in my mind, this is the best werewolf movie that has ever been made. Werewolves versus soldiers is just such a fun idea for a movie, and like the movie is also set on a farm at night. I live on a farm, and I know what it's like here at night. When it gets dark, it's like, it's dark. I love werewolves. I'm genuinely fascinated by them, and I love hearing stories about them. I genuinely like hearing about them so much that I wrote a short script for like a short horror film involving a werewolf that I wrote during quarantine. So you let me know what you think about that idea. The werewolf costumes and effects are incredible in this movie, and I highly recommend you watch the making of video that comes as part of the special features on the DVD. It explains how the costumes work and what was involved in the design process for creating the werewolves, and how like the animatronics for their face works, and how they put it onto like the bodies and made people really tall, and how like their werewolves are really different to like every other werewolf that's been shown on movies. Like they're not like the ones from Underworld that are like really muscular tanky things. They're more like lithe and stuff like that there, and it's really cool. I like them. Go watch this movie. So someone probably wants me to talk about why the soldiers are actually there. So Cooper feels getting into special operations because he won't kill a dog.
Here, shoot the dog. I'm sorry, sir, what? Take the weapon and use it.
I respect that. Captain Douchebag Ryan kills the dog instead. Why? Because he's a prick. Pay attention. This leads to them doing this training mission where we see Ryan watching them. Eventually the squad finds a wounded Ryan and his camp, which has been torn apart like I'd said earlier. I mean, with that scratch, we all know he's going to turn into a werewolf at some point. Some more plot happens along with some pew-pewing and kabooms! We finally get an explanation as to what's going on. Essentially, Ryan and his team were sent to catch one of these werewolves for shady military weapon reasons. The soldiers are there because they are being used as bait. Because like I said, Ryan is a prick.
I don't know what to say.
Got my lighter, lost for words?
It's perfect.
Yeah, and it's also solid silver, so...
So, here's my final thoughts on this movie. If you're looking for a genuinely terrifying experience, you're not going to get it. But that's not what I wanted anyway. It's a fun action horror movie where soldiers fight werewolves with swords and they box werewolves. Why would you not want to watch that? 8 out of 10, chef's kiss, loved it, bye.